What's up everybody, Corey with Freaky Tech Reviews here. So earlier today, Apple unveiled their Apple Watch Series 9 and iPhone 15. There was a ton of information covered in that hour and a half, but in this video, I want to try to summarize everything that you need to know for those two products. Apple started the presentation talking about how their emergency services had saved people's lives, and then discussed the two products they plan to cover in the video, the Series 9 watch and the iPhone 15. Before they started with the watch, they talked about Mac updates and recapped the success of the Mac Studio, Pro, and the 15-inch MacBook Air and then the transition to Apple Silicon, and also revisited the Apple Vision Pro that they announced back in June, and talked about how third-party developers are already showing Apple what they can do with the Vision Pro, and it's still on track to ship early 2024. Now let's dive into the Apple Watch Series 9 because there's some really cool stuff that Apple talked about. With the introduction of the Apple Watch Series 9, Apple also introduced a redesigned chip called the S9 SIP for Watch OS. The CPU uses 5.6 billion transistors, and the GPU is 30% faster than previous generations. The 4-core neural engine allows double the speed of machine learning, and it's boasting an 18-hour battery life. There's also a big update on Siri that's pretty cool. Instead of Siri requests being processed on your phone, they are now able to be processed on the watch itself for better speed. This way it doesn't have to go to the cloud or connect to your phone to answer, and dictation is 25% more accurate than the Series 8. Siri will now have the ability to answer questions related to your health, including weight, sleep, and medication reminders. Siri currently works in English and Mandarin, with more languages coming. Watch OS 10 also has a name drop feature to share contact information, and using a new ultra-wideband chip, it now has a better Find My function by being able to ping your iPhone directly. There's also better integration with HomePod that pops up with media suggestions once the Apple Watch gets within range of the HomePod. And now the always-on Retina display goes up to 2000 nits, which is double the Series 8, and when it detects dark environments, it goes down to 1 nit. And one of the coolest features of the Series 9 Apple Watch is the new gesture system called Double Tap. Double Tap is where you tap your index finger and thumb together twice, and it controls different functions of your watch. You can answer or hang up on a call, pause or play music, and even snooze alarms. And you can even assign other features to Double Tap, such as accessing your smart stacks or double tapping to scroll widgets. It uses a combination of the watch's internal accelerometer and gyroscope and the S9 SIP to measure your hand movements. One thing that's really cool is you can even set your iPhone up to take a picture and use the Double Tap feature on your watch to take a photo. I think this is an awesome update for the watch. I'm really excited to see how it works in person. The Series 9 watch comes in 5 different color options in aluminum and 3 color options for stainless steel. And then also, Apple announced their Ultra 2 watch. It also uses the S9 SIP with all previously mentioned features, but the new display now has the ability to go up to 3000 nits of brightness. The new watch face is called Modular Ultra and uses the edges of the watch screen to provide even more information on your display. And it has a night mode function that will activate automatically whenever it detects low light. Apple also mentioned that Watch OS 10 now has the ability to connect to Bluetooth devices, but I wasn't able to determine if it's just for the Ultra or the Series 9 in general. The Apple Watch Ultra works from -500 feet to 9,000 foot altitude, and it still has up to 36 hours of typical use and up to 72 hours in low power mode. The Series 9 SE Apple Watch starts at $249, with the Series 9 starting at $399, and the Ultra 2 will start at $799. So prices are not too far off, but the functionality of the new Apple Watch is pretty solid. Now, before the unveiling of the iPhone 15, Apple did talk through some major environmental updates that they're going through with a short skit featuring Mother Nature. Apple said they'll be phasing out all plastic and leather by 2024, and all Apple locations run on clean energy and are carbon neutral. Apple stated their transportation emissions have reduced by 95% because of ocean-based travel versus air travel, and in order to reduce carbon in the atmosphere, they've started planting forests worth of trees in other countries. They've also reduced their water usage by up to 63 billion gallons and have a goal of net zero climate impact for all Apple devices by 2030. They also introduced a new textile called Fine Woven that has a lower carbon footprint than leather and uses 68% recycled material. This fine woven textile that Apple is introducing applies to absolutely everything that is an Apple product, so there will be no more leather goods sold. This includes iPhone cases, watch bands, AirTag cases, anything that could be leather is now made out of this fine woven textile that Apple has created. Now let's dive into the really interesting stuff, because there are some awesome updates coming for the iPhone 15 that really make it awesome. And just as a caveat, I have an iPhone 11 Pro Max, so all of these features seem above and beyond for me, but in typical Apple fashion, in the lower model iPhone 15s, there's not a lot of different functionalities than the iPhone 14, except for a couple minor upgrades, but the Pro and Pro Max versions have some really cool stuff happening. The iPhone 15 will have the same dynamic island like the 14, but with more updates and expansion on what it can do. And it has extra features that make the notch kind of worth it. The new Retina display has a peak brightness of 2000 nits for outside brightness, which is twice of that of the iPhone 14. The regular iPhone 15 comes in at 6.1 inches and the Plus is at 6.7 inches. Apple also talked about the new contoured edge of the phone as they're starting to change their design a little bit. And they also discussed how they've embedded color throughout the glass that's built into the phone case itself using using dual ion technology. I don't know what that is. And they come in colors of pink, yellow, green, blue, and black, and are polished with nanocrystalline particles. Their screen uses a ceramic shield that's water and dust resistant, and Apple also further emphasized their point on how many recycled materials are going into these newer iPhones. Now, the camera itself is awesome because it has a 48 megapixel camera and uses computational photography for better light capture. And it takes images and combines it with higher resolution images to give it a 48 megapixel quality feel. It has a 2x telephoto option for photos and videos that can be used by the main camera, and continuous zoom to prevent camera switching when zooming in. There's also an upgrade to the portraits function, which is really cool. With better low light performance and better colors and bokeh, the iPhone will now switch to portrait mode automatically if it detects a person, and it's even able to do this with dogs and cats. There's new focus and depth control being introduced, and one of the coolest features I'm seeing in portrait mode is after you take a picture, you can then switch back and forth on who is actually in focus. That's incredible technology, and I'm really excited to see that in person. Now, for performance on the iPhone 15, it uses the A16 Bionic chip with a 5-core GPU with a 6-core CPU that uses 2 high-performance cores and 4 high-efficiency cores for daily tasks. It boasts an all-day battery life, and the Plus also has a bigger battery, but they did not mention how long that battery actually lasts. Now, for connectivity and wireless technologies, the ultra-wideband chip is a 2nd-generation chip that allows a 3 times farther away connection for other devices. And another really cool feature is the audio quality now allows you mid-phone call to turn on voice isolation so that whoever you're talking to can hear your voice even better. And then Apple also talked about their emergency SOS being expanded to 14 countries on 3 continents and also coming to Spain and Switzerland later this month. There will also now be roadside assistance via satellite, and you can also text roadside assistance for help through Apple's partnership with AAA, and satellite services are free for 2 years with the purchase of an iPhone 15. Now, for wired capabilities, we have a huge upgrade with the iPhone 15s all being able to use USB-C. This makes all Apple products USB-C friendly, which is something they should have done a long time ago, but here we are. And one thing that's really cool is you can now charge your AirPods via your iPhone with the USB-C cable. Not super necessary, but still kind of a cool thing to consider. And then in a moment that made me laugh, Apple is introducing their wired earpods through USB-C, which is basically what they used to come with phones, except now you can buy them for probably $100. I didn't see a price yet. There's no changes to MagSafe, and like I said earlier, new cases will be made from fine woven, the new textile from Apple. As far as the cost, iPhone comes in at $799, the iPhone Plus at $899, and you can get up to $800 off when trading in an iPhone 11 or newer. Now, for the Pro and Pro Max that were announced, here's where we really start to see the new upgrades for iPhones. They feature a new titanium design for the case itself so that it's more lightweight and durable, and it has the same redesigned contoured edges as the regular iPhone 15. It uses a grade 5 titanium that is stronger than normal titanium, and it's the same alloy used on the Mars rover. There are 4 finishes for the cases, and it uses the same ceramic shield for the screen itself. The Pro comes in at 6.1 inches, and the Pro Max comes in at 6.7 inches. Now, one thing I'm not a fan of is Apple is changing the switch on the iPhone, which has been around since the 1st generation, to something now called the action button. With the action button, you now press and hold to silence your phone, but it also has the ability to assign other features to it, such as the camera, voice recording, or the Find My app. It uses haptic feedback to let you know that it's entered each state when you press the button. And I don't really like this because I like being able to reach into my pocket and feel that my phone is on silent mode because I can tell where the switch is. So now I'll be questioning this if I upgrade phones. Apple also introduced iOS 17, which will be coming to all new iPhones, but we'll see more updates on that as the year goes on. But it will all be powered through the new Apple A17 chip for the Pro and Pro Max. This is the cell phone industry's first 3nm chip that uses 19 billion transistors. It has a 6-core GPU with 2 performance cores that are 10% faster than the iPhone 15 and 4 efficiency cores that says 3 times faster than the competition, but in typical Apple fashion, it doesn't really say who the competition is. The Neural Engine is now twice as fast with 35 trillion operations per second, and the new USB 3 controller allows up to 10 gigabits per second transfer speeds. Now, Apple really dove into the gaming scene with the Pro and Pro Max, which is something that you really don't think of when it comes to iPhones, but they really want you to know that you can almost play games that are meant for consoles on an iPhone now. Apple mentioned that they have mesh shading on games now and have ray tracing abilities because of the new A17 chip that allows for higher frame rates and 4 times faster ray tracing. They also talked about their Metal FX upscaling with better refresh rates and mentioned that the Division Resurgence will be launching on the iPhone in 2024, and also talked about how Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil Village and Assassin's Creed Mirage are coming to the iPhone next year. Not sure who's really excited about that, but that's cool, I guess. Now, for the Pro cameras, we do see some pretty cool things. Apple said that the way that their new camera system works is basically the equivalent of 7 different lenses, and I'll explain how this works. With the 48 megapixel main camera, it has a larger sensor than the iPhone 15s and uses a quad pixel sensor. Pictures also use something called the 48 megapixel Heath that allows 4 times more resolution than before. I'm not exactly sure how to explain this or what this is, but I think it's similar to like an upgraded version of Apple's ProRes, which is kind of like a RAW, but I'm not super super knowledgeable on cameras, so I'm not 100% on what that is. But let me know in the comments below if you understand it better than I do, because I would love to hear from you. It also introduced 24, 28, and 35mm focal lengths for portrait modes, and you can now choose a default lens for professional users. One thing Apple really talked about is how much better their night mode pictures were, but in a lot of the pictures they showed, there was still a ton of graininess in the dark areas, so I feel like they could have done a better job taking these pictures if they were going to showcase that, but there was a lot of noise in the background of those pictures. Now, the iPhone 15 Pro has a 3x telephoto camera that goes up to 77mm in focal length, and for the Max, it goes up to 5x zoom at up to 120mm focal length. This is where you get the equivalent of 7 different cameras on the iPhone Pro Max, because it goes from what we're about to talk about in a little bit, macro shooting, all the way up to 120mm of focus. The Max has a 25% larger photo sensor than the 14 Pro Max, and the way that the Max achieves that 120mm focal length is that it allows light to bounce 4 times, giving it the similar effect of a longer lens. It also has a sensor that can micro adjust up to 10,000 times per second to help with this. They also feature 12 megapixel ultra wide cameras and macro photography abilities. So being able to go from super close up detail with macro up to 120mm focal length, I think is really cool, and it makes it a very versatile camera to have in your pocket. Also, with USB 3, it allows ProRes photos and videos to transfer even faster, and now you can connect your phone to a Mac and shoot with images going directly to the Mac, or even do that with an external storage drive via a USB-C cable. And the Pro Max will be able to shoot up to 4K 60 in ProRes, which is a huge deal for any type of creation. And one thing that's really cool is they talked about spatial video, which is basically a 3D type of video that gives your videos depth and makes them feel more real. And in typical Apple ecosystem form, you'll now be able to take those spatial videos and send it to someone that has the headset coming out later this year, and they'll be able to watch the video with the headset and feel like they're actually there watching it live. I think that's actually really cool technology. Now, the iPhone 15 Pro starts at $999, and the Pro Max starts at $1,199 with the 256GB storage option, and you can get up to $1,000 with a trade-in of an iPhone 11 Pro or newer. I do think that 256GB for the Pro Max is very light, and I just don't see that being the option that makes sense for most people. So whatever the price is for the next step up, which is probably going to be 512GB, I think that's going to be like the minimum for the Pro Max. And if you're really going to be using the Pro Max for any type of content creation, because those file sizes are going to be so huge, I think you're going to need to look at even higher than 512GB. But this could be kind of solved because Apple also announced at the end of the presentation new iCloud plans for up to 6TB and up to 12TB. But that was the event today, and I would love to hear in the comments what you think about Apple's updates. And I'd love to keep you in the loop on what's going on the rest of this year with Apple and also in tech and gaming. So be sure to subscribe and join the Freaky Tech family so I can keep you in the loop. But thank you so much for your time today, and I really appreciate you spending it with me. Again, I'm Corey with Freaky Tech Reviews. I'll see you next time.